CNG Media.
Welcome to Vino with Vito. Today we have Alex El Grande from El Grande and El Grande, real estate attorney. Everybody's been asking about having a real estate attorney here so he can answer a lot of our questions, and especially today how real estate is. We definitely need somebody that knows what they're doing and has been in the business for a while. I think Alex has been in the business for maybe, about 2-3 years now?
Yeah, 2-3 years. Yeah.
And also today we have the Wizard here with us.
Back.
And we have our nice Robert Graham holder, a nice bottle of wine from Salvano. Kevin and Samantha again from Wine to Wine.
We gotta have Kevin on the show.
We gotta have Kevin on the show. Actually, we'll have Samantha on the show.
Yeah,
we'll talk about her wines. Yeah.
Samantha's definitely prettier than Kevin.
Kevin is. I think we should have Samantha. Samantha, if you're listening to this, you're invited to the show. But and also Alex, what do you think of my new Robert Graham
Did
limited
you match
edition?
the wine with your shirt?
Did you notice the label?
Did you guys notice that? See, I'm using my my knocker
There you
there.
go.
I matched.
No, we'll never know if you really.
Yeah,
Can I get that wine opener?
you actually
please?
can. And this is from Proactive.
I mean, what are the odds that it was the same exact color?
Look at this.
Identical.
Oh, this is a nice snapshot picture, huh? Wow. I like that. Oh, man, this wine's going to be tough to open. I already know it. But we're going to open it up. So again, we have Alex El Grande, our attorney here. And Alex, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your firm there?
Yeah. It's a husband and wife team. My wife is also a real estate attorney, Carolyn. And 90% of our practice is real estate. We represent both buyers and sellers. We also do commercial real estate. And we've been doing it. I've been practicing since 1989, and Carolyn's been practicing since 1988.
Nice.
Yeah.
What's the other 10%?
It's wills, estate planning, some personal injury, stuff like that.
I thought it was gonna be like assault or something.
Yeah, no.
Let me ask you this. So, Alex, what's it like working with Vito on his transactions? Is he an easy realtor to deal with, or is he difficult?
Yeah, he's okay because, a lot of realtors, all they really care about is getting the deal done, and he's not like that. He does actually protect his clients, where a lot of realtors could care less. Immediately they just try to waive everything, inspections, appraisals, they just waive it, And meanwhile, the buyer's on the hook for everything because in the contract, if he's representing the buyer, they just say, the buyer's going to waive the appraisal, the buyer's going to waive the home inspection. And that's pretty dangerous because if you have a first-time buyer who doesn't have a lot of money, are they going to have the money to make up if the appraisal comes in low? If they don't, then what's the point of submitting an offer and then putting them on the line where the buyer can get sued later on because, hey, you waived the appraisal. That means you represented, you had the extra money to make, to compensate the shortcoming.
So you guys just had a transaction though recently, you and Vito, where something came up with the other attorney about closing. This was 2 weeks ago.
Which one?
Remember we were sitting in the backyard, and the attorneys were going back and forth, and Alex picked up on something.
Oh yeah,
One of the clauses.
A lot of times, the clauses that they put in there, and if you don't read the contract, like Alex and Carolyn read these contracts, you're not going to catch it. But before I get into that, salute, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So that's be episode 39 or 40.
It's actually really good.
Very nice.
It's got a little bit of a kick at the end. Yeah, tannins.
I love Italian wines.
Yeah,
Very nice.
It's got a tannin kick at the end,
Oh my gosh.
What's your favorite kind of wine?
This right here.
Italian, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
red,
Italian, yeah.
Italian red wine.
Yeah.
That's the best. But
yeah. I like dry. I'm not into sweet wines either.
Yeah, interesting.
I like a dry
so no
wine.
Primotivos then?
Yeah, no. I like a dry
Primotivos.
wine.
Oh, me too. Primitivo, Negromata.
Yeah.
I got a Negromata we're gonna bring next time. From,
next episode.
Next episode. But
yeah, I mean, some attorneys they sneak things in, or you could just tell that they don't do a lot of real estate, and some of the stuff they're asking for. I think the conversation was in the yard at Nucci's house.
Yes, at Nucci's house in the backyard.
I mean, it was just foolish. I mean, what he was asking for made no sense at all. But we were going back and forth. Do you make your point and tell him that he doesn't know what he's talking about, or you just say, okay, just forget about it?
So what's like the middle ground? Do you ever lose your cool?
Oh yeah.
No, never.
Oh, yeah. And lose your cool in a way you got to do. I mean, when I was younger, you lose your cool emotionally, but nowadays it's just like, you
Because
know.
you got to talk to him the next
Yeah,
day.
I mean, there's one attorney that, you know, you got to keep talking to him. And, you know, you never
Yeah.
want to hang up on an attorney because it's so unprofessional. But some people do. Some attorneys.
Mm-hmm.
Carolyn had one, what was it, a couple months ago, and the guy she started yelling at her and just hung up on her, and she was like, "That was the weirdest thing. I don't think I've been hung up on in 20-something years."
I had a realtor do that to me one time.
Hung up on you?
Yeah, you're talking and you're going back and forth, and you put him on the spot, and he didn't want to hear it, and he just hung up on
Hung
her.
up.
Yeah,
So
I know.
what's one of like your craziest closing stories? It could be recent or it could be one from a long time ago.
I had one a long time ago. I represented the buyer, really nice people. And so we get to the closing, and the realtor says to me, "We got a problem." And I said, "What's the problem?" They said, "You know, it was a house in Belleville near Claremont Hospital. And the sellers were old-time Italians. And they had the most beautiful garden you could ever imagine in the backyard. Beautiful shrubs. You know. And a client showed up, and they said, you know, everything is gone. All the shrubs are gone. They dug them all up. So I'm sitting there, and the other attorney was a really nice guy. And so the other attorney comes before the seller comes to the closing. And I said, "Look, we got a problem." And he said, "What's the problem?" I said, "You know, your clients dug up all the bushes, like 50, 60 bushes. They're gone."
Wow.
So the attorney said, "Oh boy, that's a problem, right?" And bushes are expensive, especially, you know, we were talking like $10,000-15,000 worth of bushes. I mean, really. So the seller shows up, two sisters. The seller shows up, and the attorney says, "You know, we have a problem. You know, you took the bushes and you dug up." She goes, "Oh no, we didn't. There was nothing ever there." So I said to my client in front of everybody, I said, "Well, what's there now in the yard?" She says, "There's just dirt circles."
Nobody knows nothing.
So the attorney, so now there was another realtor in the office, and the realtor says, "Oh, are you talking about so-and-so?" Because apparently it was so beautiful. She goes, "I took pictures of it because I showed it to a different buyer."
Wow.
So she comes in with the pictures of all the bushes that were there that they're claiming were never there.
Yeah.
And the seller just goes crazy, starts yelling at at their attorney, saying, "Listen, and finally, my client calls me into the other room and says, "Look, I don't want bad luck." They were Indian clients. He goes, and they were afraid they were going to put a hex on the house. He goes, "I don't want any bad luck. I don't want anything from them. I just want them.
Yeah.
I want to close. I don't want any bad luck on the house. Let's just forget." I said, "We're talking about $10,000-15,000.
Yeah.
And the other attorney agreed, you know, especially based upon the pictures of what they took. And he said, no, don't, just let's forget about it. But the person sat there and was going to lie the whole way through until the realtor said, "Oh, I have pictures," because the yard was so
Thank God.
beautiful with all the bushes.
Yeah.
But you know, you catch just crazy people. I mean, I've had people take all the light bulbs out of the house. I mean, you're like light bulbs.
So what's the law with that though? If it's attached to the property,
If it's attached to the property such that to remove it would be destructive, it's a fixture and you can't take it
because a
with
lot of
you.
people don't know that.
Yeah, and definitely plants and stuff like that around the property are considered
Attached.
part of the property.
Yeah.
You can't
unless they exclude
unless
it.
they exclude it in the beginning. You
Yeah,
say,
I-
"Hey, you know, I've had people like fig trees. We talk about fig trees. Hey, we're taking the fig tree. It's a fig tree we've had forever. We're digging that up, and it's in the contract. It'll say it, you know. And they're removing. And I had one. It was the craziest thing. It was a special window. It was one of these huge windows where you have the double foyers, and literally takes a crane to remove it and stuff. And they were taking the window because they had it specially made in, I think it was France or something, a special glass. And they said, "We'll replace it with something that looks similar, but it's not going to be that." And we agreed to it. You know, we were the buyers. We desperately wanted the house. We said, "Fine." And
Makes
sure
sense.
enough, they had professionals come. It was
Take
so
a win- I've
big
never
and
heard
so
of that.
heavy.
Take a window.
It was so big and so
Yeah,
heavy, they
right.
had to have a crane disassemble it and put it onto the back of a truck. I'm like, wow, they're going to have to build a house that fits that window. Just think about it. But apparently it was really, really expensive, and it was all this fancy glass in it.
Interesting.
And they took it and they replaced it, and my client was happy with it, you know,
Wow.
what they replaced it with.
I've never heard that one
Imagine
before.
being a realtor. Yeah, how do you like the house? Yeah, but the window's
window-
not included.
That window's going. That window's going. That's crazy.
Yeah, but that was probably one of the strangest things that I've had
was a
where they've
window.
taken it, and it was in the contract in the very beginning that they're taking it. We said, fine. you
The
know.
light bulbs are crazy though. Who took the light bulbs?
Oh, it happens a lot.
Oh, yeah, people
Light
take
bulbs,
light
the covers, the covers for the electrical outlets. They
Outlets.
take the covers, and you're like, "Are you kidding me or what?" Like,
Yeah, that's-
so the final walkthrough, you can't test anything because the lights won't go on, nothing will go on because the light bulbs are all
Bulbs are
gone.
gone.
You're like,
Well,
"Holy
I bought a house one time, and my personal house. I go do the walkthrough. The lady took all the light fixtures
All of them?
Every single light fixture.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we actually
Yeah,
put that in the
flashlight.
contract.
And just had like wires.
Wires
hanging.
hanging. I literally put that in all light fixtures, everything in my review letters that they're included because people are crazy. The things that they take, you can't believe it.
So what are some things buyers and even sellers should look out for when they're doing a contract with the realtor?
Well,
Is
when
there
it's
like a checklist you go through usually?
yeah, normally when I represent a seller, I ask them if there's anything wrong with the house, and if they tell me that there is, I say be upfront, because the you're at a point where the buyer wants the house in the worst way. So basically, no matter what you tell them, as long as you're upfront, you tell them about it, they're going to still want the house. So they'll say, oh yeah, every once in a while there's a leak in the basement, water comes in. Tell them. Let's tell them where it is, how often it comes. Chances are this now at least they know it's in writing. You've disclosed that
yeah.
hey, on when it rains a lot, or it's a major storm, we get water in the far corner of the right side of the house. So this way, if it happens, you're not subject to a lawsuit. Because if you say hey, because usually attorneys will put the basement doesn't flood, there's no water seepage, and you're going to be lying. So tell them the truth now, and then the truth will set you free.
set you
And what does that lawsuit look like?
Well, usually they don't because of the fact that
It's going to cost you more.
it's going to cost you more
so-
money to litigate it than it is to. I mean, I had a client in Nutley who bought a house, and the seller represented that the basement never flooded. So my client moves in, and sure enough, we have a major storm, and he's sitting there, and he's got a hose hooked up to the sump pump, and he's shooting it out the window of the basement. And the neighbor came, the new neighbor, and he introduced himself. He goes, "Can you believe this?" The guy said it never flooded. The first major storm. I said, "What are you talking about? The seller was doing this every single time it rained."
Oh, man.
It was a pure lie. And now my client called me up, and I said, "Look, how much is it going to cost to waterproof the basement so it doesn't happen?" He goes, "Well, I got a price. It's going to cost about $6,000." I said, "It's going to cost you a lot more to litigate it than it is for the $6,000 because you got to go
There's
track
a lot
it."
of things too.
Yeah. So
And what's crazy though that you're saying that people should be upfront. I don't know. Like every morning I walk. Everybody knows I walk. I sometimes in the park, sometimes around around town. So Ann and I, and now my wife, sometimes when we go to see our grandkids, we'll walk together. And there was a house that just sold, right? And I see water just being pumped out into the street. And I'm saying, no, they must be emptying their pool. I don't know why. So we didn't think anything about it. They just bought the house. Probably, I think they paid $100,000 over. Yeah. I'm not going to mention where because I lost out on that deal with somebody, which in a way now, a good thing it happened that way. So the next day, I'm walking again. The pool liner, an in-ground pool liner, was all cut up on the side. So now they had to replace their pool liner. So I'm saying to myself, I wonder if they knew it needed a pool liner, if the pool was open or whatever, or whatever happened to it. Today, we're walking. I see a plumber there. They're removing a hot water heater. The guy just bought the house like maybe not even a month ago, a month and a half ago. But again, they might have known, they might have not known. So
yeah, I just believe if I represent a seller, be honest. Let them know everything that's wrong with the house up front. Especially if it's something serious, because again, they're going to want the house. They want the house in the worst way. Chances are they lost many bids on houses coming up to it. So if you're up front, you say, hey, this is what happens. Usually they're going to say, okay, no problem. I've never had one say, oh, forget it. We don't want the house anymore.
Right,
it just doesn't happen. So they know, okay, they're being honest. They'll let us know. At least they know it's an issue they're going to have to address at some point in time. But if you lie to them and then you get caught, I mean, we've had deals where, it rains and I'm trying to remember what house it was. Was it the Bloomfield house, the two-family? And it was raining. The buyer just happened to go there and look, and water was coming in everywhere. It was new construction.
Wow.
And there was a pipe that they ran that they said that it was from some kind of a drain in the basement, but it didn't go anywhere. The inspector couldn't figure out where it went.
Right.
I said, no, you got to address it. You got to be kidding me. And obviously, they painted it. The floor was painted. They painted it because they knew the water was coming in.
And
you
we saw that on the pictures. You
Yeah,
remember? The pictures from the MLS
we saw that
showed
the paint had been peeling. So and all of a sudden now the paint's not peeling. So you knew it was raining. You knew it was coming up. The water
was sneaky.
But you get caught. When you get caught, you lose total credibility. And at that point in time, the buyers are like their antennas are up and they don't trust anything you're going to say. So why get caught? Be honest, and chances are, you won't have to worry about it later on.
Yeah, I have one right now where I have the sellers and home inspections were done and everything else, and the seller comes back and says, "Hey, you know what? I just realized, my guy outside, these outlets don't work." He goes, it was never on the inspection report that these outlets don't work. I just want you to know I'm hiring an electrician to fix them. You know, he's doing it on his own because you know what? He's doing the right thing. And, you know, it's karma.
There's good people out
There's
there.
good people out there. Somebody else would have been like, hey, I ain't going to spend $500 or $1,000 on
I had a
electrician.
seller in Montville the day before the closing. For some crazy reason, he decided to check his pool. And he goes to check his in-ground pool, and it's like 6 inches short of water. And he calls me up and he says, I got a problem. I said, what's the problem?
leak?
He said, you know, the pool's got to be leaking because there's 6 inches missing in the pool. So I said, well, we're closing tomorrow. He said, you know, the buyers were here. They did their final walkthrough. They didn't notice it. He goes, but I can't close knowing that, you know, the pool's got a leak in it. Right. So he said, you know, tell them that I know what a new liner costs. It's about $6,000. That I'll give him $6,000 and let them know. I said, are you sure you want to do that?
That's nice of him.
Yeah. And he said, oh, I could never, he was moving to Texas. He said, I could never live with myself knowing. I said, wow, what a classy guy. You know?
That's awesome.
Now, 90% of the people would have just kept it to themselves and said, that's their problem. You know,
it must have happened after we closed.
But, you know, and I called up
long toenails.
I called up the other attorney. I'll never forget. He was in North Bergen. And he's like, wow. Couldn't believe it. He said, "Really?"
Yeah.
I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "It's missing about 6 inches of water." And the last time we looked at it was a month and a half ago. So in a month and a half, he's lost. And he goes, "Wow, those people are rare, you know." But I've had a few of them. They're honest, rare. You know. I've also had people who a contract is accepted, and then all of a sudden an offer comes in that's $50,000-$60,000 more than the contract that was accepted. And they say, "No, I gave the first people, my word. You know, I can't." And that's rare too. You're walking away from $50,000-$60,000, you know. But it happens. There's good people out there.
Yeah. 50, 60 grand. That's a lot of money. You know,
sure.
But some people, like you said, look at it and say, you know what, I like the people. I accepted their offer.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to break their hearts, and that's it. You know.
I'll tell you a funny story, a bad story. So it was in Hanover, and I represented the buyer. And the sellers were the nicest people, 2 old people. They came to the closing, and what happened was we were waiting for the seller's attorney. So they're talking, the buyers and the sellers are talking. And so the sellers say, you know, they're leaving for Florida that day. They're driving straight through. So they liked my client so much that instead of going straight, they decided to go to the shopping mall and buy them a gift. So as soon as we get done with the closing, my client gets on his cell phone and says, okay, go. So I said, what was that? He said, I got a crew of people at the house right now. I got about 20 guys for demolition.
Wow.
Right? So now the house was immaculate, but it was immaculate 1950s. Okay. And they were at the closing, they were talking about how they raised their kids there and what a great house it is. And I'm telling you, it was immaculate. And so the buyer goes to the house, and the guys are ripping out the kitchen cabinets, and they're ripping out the bathrooms, and the sellers show up with a present for my clients.
Oh my gosh!
And he says he looks out the window, and they're crying in the driveway.
Oh, that's terrible.
What town was this?
This was Hanover.
In Hanover?
They're crying. And he called me up and he said, I never felt so small in all my life. Why did they have to come back?
Right back,
He goes,
yeah.
but, you know, it's money. I needed to get this done. You know, I got it. Because he was selling his other house, so he had to get this project done as quickly as possible.
So the buyers were ripping apart.
The buyers were destroying, you know, totally renovating it. It was immaculate, the house. I mean, he even said it, but it was 1950s, 1960s. You know, he wanted new kitchens, and they just cried. They were just sitting there crying. He felt so bad that these people were going to drive all the way to Florida, thinking about that their house was destroyed. Yeah. Instead of in their mind for the rest of their life, their house was still the way it was. You know?
And think about all like the fixer-uppers that have to get knocked down, and they tell the seller that we're not going to knock it down.
Oh, yeah.
We're not
Closing happens a week later.
Yeah, we're not an investor. It's going to be for my kid or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
You drive by the next week, the house is down. They're building new construction.
But those are the kinds of things that happen. You know, you just people. It's their house. That's why I tell Vito all the time. He had an older lady that we happened to be in the car at the same time, and she called Vito crying and screaming at him that these people, they came, and you got to see all the bad things they said. It was a home inspection. I always try to tell the sellers, don't be there for the home inspection.
Yeah.
Don't be there, because the job of the home inspector is to find things wrong with the house.
Exactly.
And do you remember this lady? And she was screaming at Vito, saying he was making fun. He was saying all these things that are wrong with my house. I've been here for 40 years. This house is perfect. Blah blah blah. And Vito's trying to explain to her, no, listen, this is what inspectors do. They're there to find things wrong with the house. And she didn't want to sell to these people. She was contractually bound to sell to these people.
Sure.
And she was like so upset and crying that they were ridiculing the house. And I said, boy, oh boy, what a bad situation.
Yeah.
Don't be
People
there.
are very attached to the
Oh,
neighbors.
don't be there.
Yeah,
Don't be there.
Don't be. I always tell everybody, don't go to the home inspection.
Nope.
And if I'm the listing agent, I won't go to the home inspection because I don't want to walk around with the home inspector and want to give them a backhand
Nudging,
either.
No, I've had sellers who follow the home inspector refuting everything they say to the buyer. That's not right. That's not true. It's like, stop. Don't do it. Don't do it. It's not worth it.
And again, they say with a home inspector, it's their opinion. It's not that it's necessarily wrong or something's bad or whatever. It's the home inspector's opinion.
Well, the inspector's coming from the mortgage, from the bank.
No,
that's the appraisal.
That's his appraisal.
The buyer
is coming from the buyer.
Yeah.
But what'll happen is you'll get two different home inspectors and you'll get two different home inspection reports. How many times did it happen?
Oh, yeah.
Where you
Like
sell
going to a doctor.
Yeah. You go and this inspector said this is all wrong with the house. And you fix everything, and then the deal doesn't go through. Then another home inspector comes,
And he finds
about 10 new different things wrong with the house, and you're like,
And
wait a
vice
minute.
versa. Sometimes you have an inspector who ends up killing the deal because he finds all these imaginary things wrong with the house.
Yeah.
The next buyer comes with their inspector, and they find almost nothing wrong with the house.
Right,
And you're like,
right.
okay, which one is it?
Yeah.
But some
I just had
inspectors,
one of those.
some inspectors are just bad news. They feel like, hey, especially the ones that charge a lot of money, that they're there to justify their fee, so they're going to find something wrong with the house, even if it's imaginary. They're going to find something wrong with the house.
I would love to go to that home inspector's house myself personally and do a
check
home
it out.
inspection and actually do the home inspection and say, you know what, this is wrong, that's wrong, and
Are you a
everything
fan
else.
of inspectors?
There's some good ones. There's
So,
some
yeah,
good ones,
but
yeah. As long
majority-
as they're honest, I don't care, because I'm there to protect my client.
Yeah.
So as long as they're honest, I don't care. But I had an inspector one time who, and I was familiar with the house, and he surmised. He kept using the word. So I said to my client, I want to know. I said, did the inspector go into the attic? He said, no, there was no
He
access to the attic.
surmised.
It was a really old house. It was in Nutley. And I said, well, I want you to ask him all these things that he wrote in the report, how he knows these things if he didn't go into the attic. And he said to my client, I surmised. I said to my client, what the hell does that mean? He surmised. And it was all bull crap, I was like, you can't just make, but I want my client protected. So if it's a legitimate inspector that especially somebody I recommend, I know they're legit, and they're going to do it. I mean, I had an inspector one time, and we tell all our clients, do a tank sweep. I don't care what the inspector says, do a tank sweep. And the inspector said to my client, you're wasting money on a tank sweep. So my client didn't do it. So my client went from condo townhouse living to a single family house. And that wasn't cut out for him and his wife. So after owning the house for 6 months, they decided to put it on the market and to buy a condo. So sure enough, the second buyers come along and they do a tank sweep and they find a tank. So Carolyn said, wait a minute, I have in my emails here that make sure you do a tank sweep. Blah, blah. He goes, well, the inspector said you're wasting your money doing a tank sweep. There's definitely no tanks here. She said, oh, really? So we got the inspector to pay for we ended up settling. The buyers took it. And the buyer said, okay, they were going to reduce the price by whether it was $1,000 or $1,200, and we made the inspector pay the $1,200, which he gladly did because otherwise he was facing a lawsuit,
Yeah.
And we said, hey, as long as the buyer says they're going to accept it with it there, then we're okay with
Those
it.
damn oil tanks.
Wait. Speaking about oil tanks, though, Alex is going to have you're going to remember this one. This is a good story, too.
Yeah.
There was a house in Fairfield I was selling. They were getting top dollar for it. Remember that?
Oh,
And
yeah.
It was in a flood zone, and the guy's getting good money for it. And they said, yeah, they found an underground oil tank.
No, that's not our story.
No, wait. It was
Decommissioned.
Decommissioned oil.
They represented during attorney review that it was decommissioned. So I said, okay, give me the invoices that were decommissioned. So I'm looking at the invoices, and on the invoice it said to decommission the tank $950, or no, $750. To remove the tank, $950. So I said, so for $200 extra he could have had it removed, and he didn't have it removed. So I was immediately suspicious. And the attorney was a really nice guy in Wayne. And so I said to my client, who we still both know very well, and that client has since sent me so many clients, I said, look, I'm insisting that you have the tank removed because I learned a long time ago, and I've had it from experts, that unless you remove the tank, and it's been decommissioned, you have no idea what's underneath the tank. Because if you have loamy soil, and there's a hole in the middle of the tank straight on the bottom, it's just going to go straight down. And when they test the soil, it goes sideways. So if there's no clay, it's just going to go straight down. So you have no idea. So I insisted to an attorney. My client said, "Okay, if that's what you believe, then we're going to go with whatever you say." And so the seller got so irate, and he canceled the deal. So the client was very grateful.
Right.
Yeah, he was
and
very
the
grateful.
realtor too got all upset.
So the seller came back and said to me, through his attorney to me, that, okay, my client said that if your client still wants the house and he has to remove the oil tank, he's going to charge your client $10,000 more. So I called up my client and I said this. He goes, okay, we'll go for that. We'll pay the $10,000 more. So make a long story short, the day that the tank's being removed, Vito pulls up to the house, and he's like 2 properties away because all the trucks are there. And Vito said as soon as he opened the door, he could smell the oil in the air.
So this wasn't the time Vito went to the wrong house?
No. So he could smell, and the other realtor was walking out of the yard as Vito was walking up, and Vito said, literally, you could smell the oil. And he goes, well, I'm glad I guess you got what you wanted.
Are you happy now? And
yeah.
I'm like,
and Vito said,
dude.
wait, what do you mean I got what I wanted? We're protecting the client. And sure enough, even though it was decommissioned and the tank inspected it a year before, there was oil, I think it was like a $30,000 or $40,000 cleanup.
Wow.
And
So what happened though back then? Where they just never kept up with the records?
No,
saying if there's
the
a
way they
tank on site?
decommission is they'll go in, like Alex said, they'll drill the
No,
holes
I'm
on
saying
the
about
side.
like the tank itself.
Right.
There's never any paperwork.
well,
No,
they did
there's
have the
paperwork.
paperwork, but what they do is they cut it and they look inside, and usually somebody from the town's looking down. But if it's a pinhole, you can't see that
see it.
pinhole.
Yeah.
So they say, yeah, it looks good to me
Looks
because they
good.
already took out all the oil. It looks good to me. Well, you don't know. And somebody from the EPA told me, you don't know because, again, it could go straight down. Unless it's clay underneath and it goes sideways, then you're going to get a hit. But they only take maybe 3 samples on each side. If you're lucky, 3 samples. They drill down and see, oh, did any oil come up? And it could just be going straight down. And it affects if it affects groundwater, then you're really screwed. Because, I mean, who's going to sell? I had a house in the landing area that people couldn't sell it. No matter what, because it had monitoring wells everywhere. And you got to pay for those reports. That the EPA would order reports every 6 months or every 3 months to see if the leaching continued. Nobody wants to buy a house that has monitoring wells on the property.
And speaking about monitoring wells, I have an investor right now wants to buy a house in, where is it? I think it was Jefferson or Rockaway somewhere. And they got monitoring wells all over the place. And, it affected the groundwater. There's wells and everything else. And he wants to go with it. I said, think about this. I go,
You're not going to be able to sell it. You might want it.
You'll never be able to sell it. You might want it. Go to the town, talk to them. I said, that's the worst thing you want to do.
No.
It
could be there for the next 20 years.
Right. Any other realtor would be like, yeah.
Hey, that's what you want. Who cares?
That's what you want. Who cares?
Yeah.
And I told him, go to the town, talk to the people. I go, I bet you're going to call me tomorrow and say, forget about it. And that's what happened. He said, forget about it. But that's why I like Alex and I like Carolyn. They'll do everything by the book. They're there to protect you. They're there to protect their client, also to protect us realtors too, because they'll tell us, hey, this is wrong or that's not wrong or whatever. And getting back to the home inspections too, also, where I remember there was one where there was a home inspection done and you were looking at the pictures, and I think you represented the seller, and the home inspection came out and said, this is wrong. And you come from a construction background too with your dad as a builder, and you're looking at the pictures and you're like, there's absolutely nothing wrong with this.
Yeah, you get it all the time.
You get it all the time. And you went to the attorney and you told him, say, look, I'm telling you, there's nothing wrong with this. And you can get a contractor. You can get somebody else to go look at it.
So Alex is a dual threat. You got the building side,
Side of
and
it,
the attorney
and
side.
the attorney side.
But the thing is if you're, again, honesty, it's always about honesty.
Yeah.
You want to, I had an attorney
Makes the
call me
deal
up.
easier.
Yeah, exactly. I had an attorney call me up and he said, look, I just want to run something by you. I know you do a lot of real estate. I'm going to be testifying as an expert in a trial in a couple days, and I want to get your opinion on this. I said, okay. So it was a house in a very exclusive town in Morris County, and what happened was the first buyer comes along, and the realtor referred an attorney, and during the home inspection, the inspector said, this house, the wiring is so bad that this house is bad shape. You have to replace the entire thing, right?
Which is
And
very expensive.
so the seller said, absolutely not, we're not doing it. So lo and behold, the second buyer comes, same realtor. This realtor refers to the same attorney. No, the inspector misses it, that the wiring is so bad. The
How
attorney,
do you miss it?
the attorney says, there's bad inspectors out there. You take a course, you're an inspector. The attorney.
Troy was flipping that.
So the attorney says nothing about the old client that he had, the previous client. The realtor says nothing. The buyers move in. 3 months later, the house burns down to the ground. To the ground. Everybody's getting sued. The attorney's getting sued. So his question to me
people in
was,
the house.
luckily nobody died.
Yeah.
His question to me was, as the attorney, would you have told the second buyers about the first buyers? I said, absolutely.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, I just had one now that I represented the buyer in a house in Mountain Lakes, and sure enough, we killed the deal because we couldn't come. And when Carolyn got the second buyers, totally weird thing, it wasn't the same real, just out of coincidence. I said, oh my God, I already had that. We told the second buyers everything that happened during my transaction with the first buyer, and said, this is it, these were the issues, this is why the first buyers walked away from the thing. And the second buyer said, okay, we still want the house, we'll go through with it, see what happens during the home inspection. But of course you got to tell them. Are you kidding me? So there's all these things wrong with the house, and you're not going to tell the second buyers. But there's a lot of attorneys, they don't want to upset the realtor, because then the realtor won't send them any more baloney.
Yeah, that's the worst.
Baloney.
That's the worst.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, how many times you and I were looking at son? You say I'm going to tell the people, and I say go right ahead.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree with you.
You got to tell them.
100%.
I mean, we tell them all the time. You're going to do your searches. We're going to ask for all these representations, and a lot of times when they don't want to make the representation, it's a red flag. So you should know at that point in time that, hey, why this is, and I'll tell my client, this is something they should not have a problem making a representation about. And if they are, then you got to think about it. And 9 times out of 10, it ends up being true, So go with your, and I tell them, go with your gut. You got to go with your gut. What do you feel about these people? You can't believe how many times the feeling is there.
Oh yeah, I've had realtors actually call me on some houses, and they'll be like, "Hey, what do you think of this house? You know Fairfield well, this and that. I've seen it was on the market, came off the market, back on the market, under contract, back." And I would tell them the truth. I would say, "Look, I know that house. It's got this, and that issue. Wow." The agent never told us that. Of course, the agent's not going to tell.
the deal.
They want the deal done.
That was another thing I want to bring up. So there is this imaginary line in the state of New Jersey. So people not listening, some part of the state they use attorneys, the other part they use
South Jersey
companies.
versus North Jersey.
What's up with that?
Yeah, it's but
And how did that start?
I got to tell, it's the weirdest thing. But I've had realtors over the many years, 30-something years I've been doing this, who are South Jersey realtors who, when they buy a house, they use an attorney. They use me, or they use Carolyn, or they use. Yet when they tell their clients that, oh no, you don't need an attorney, because they don't want the attorney to dig things up, and what a law. If the lawsuit would be great, because the first thing I would subpoena, and I would during an interrogatory, I would say, when you bought your house, did you use an attorney? So why'd you tell my client you didn't need an attorney? But it's like such a conflict. It's such a conflict. Think about it. I mean, just.
But for what a real estate attorney?
But do you know like why New Jersey did that?
It's always been like that. I don't know.
Forever.
Yes.
But you think about it, for what a real estate
one of the reasons
attorney
why, because
charges.
years ago, South Jersey properties weren't valued highly, So everybody's like, it wasn't that expensive. You could buy a bungalow or a house
can
down the
see
shore
that.
for $100,000 versus North Jersey where it's $400,000. So it was, but nowadays
times have
houses down the
changed.
shore are more expensive than the
Our
houses in
family
North
house
Jersey.
down there, some of the areas, the Manilokan properties,
no.
16 million, 14
Oh, yeah.
million.
My cousin just called me the other day, and he goes to me. He goes, "Hey, what's buyer's compensation?" You know, I'm reading an ad here for a piece of property down the shore. I said, "Well, buyer's compensation." I said, "They're giving out whatever, commission." I said, "You don't have to, but they're giving it out." He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I saw a property." I go, "Well, why? You're thinking about buying?" He goes, "Not really, but if I am, I'll let you know, and we'll go take a look." Just some dirt, $1 million
Yeah.
down the
Oh,
shore
easy.
for dirt.
Yeah.
Easy.
I had,
They're not
you know,
making any more of it. That's why.
Come on.
It's still happening, but I had a situation when COVID first started, and the market really got tight, super tight, and it started with every realtor out there was trying to sell their clients short. They were waiving appraisals, they were waiving home inspections. So I had this one particular deal where it was a referral from another client. And so I said, okay, I was going over the contract with them, and I said, you're waiving the appraisal, you're waiving the home inspection. I said, how much money do you have in the bank? And after the deposit, after you paid, how much money you can have left over? And they said, nothing. I said, nothing. Okay. I said, then you can't waive the appraisal and you can't waive the home inspection. I said, so if there's something major wrong with the house, okay, and it's a $15,000, $20,000, or the roof is leaking and you need a new roof, it's going to cost you $15,000, $20,000. Do you have the money? No. I said, okay, so if the house appraises for $20,000 less, are you going to have the $20,000 to make up in order to get the mortgage? No. So I called up the realtor and I sent my review letter out and I said, we can't agree to this, we can't. So the realtor calls me up upset. And I said, let me ask you something. I said, if this was your kid, would you waive the appraisal? Would you waive the home inspection? And because she was yelling at me, and she was quiet for a second. I said, you're going to kill this deal. And she hung up the phone.
Oh, here's realtors out
She
there
couldn't
like
answer the question. If this was your kid, would you waive the appraisal?
Yeah.
Would you waive the home inspection? No, they wouldn't.
Yeah.
They'd
So
be
this-
looking to protect their kid no matter what, but yet you do it for somebody else's kid. You
But
would,
this platform, what we're doing right now, this is why it's super important to introduce who Vito is, who you are, because if you're going to use Vito or use you, this is
You're
the
gonna
kind
be
of people that
protected,
you're
yeah.
using. Because you don't
got-
know who you're going to use.
Right,
and-
you're right.
and
again,
there's ways to get the house. Like, Carolyn was talking to Vito about it before on the way here. There's ways to still get the house and get a good offer in.
Yeah.
I mean, there are certain situations where you can contact, certain lenders have programs where you tell them, hey, look, I'm going to submit an offer. In this system, and you're putting 20% down. In the system, look up to see what the house is valued at.
Mm-hmm.
And what they'll do is, it's called mortgage assurance. They'll say, okay, if the house appraises for this for X amount, which is what they looked it up on the computer, then we'll waive the appraisal. Okay? The lender is saying that. So now the buyer is at no risk. The buyer can go in there and say, okay, we're going to offer this amount, we're going to waive the appraisal. So because already the lender's guaranteeing that they're going to give them the money on the house based upon when they did the search. Sure. So at least they're protected. But to do it point blank and then subject the buyer to a lawsuit from the seller, if the seller turns around and sells that house to somebody else for $50,000 less, $50,000 is worth suing somebody over.
Oh,
okay?
yeah.
Because that's how you normally determine what are the damages. So the seller's not going. If the seller sells it for $5,000 less, they're not going to sue somebody for $5,000. But if it's $50,000, hey, they may sue you for that $50,000. So, especially some litigators out there.
Oh yeah, that's
and
what
they're looking
for
stuff like that.
Oh yeah, that's what they're waiting for. We have one now where I represent the seller, and I got a deal where they waived the appraisal. And they had the mortgage assurance where the lender actually sent me the letter saying they can waive the appraisal. It's already done, and you don't have to worry about it. And we took that deal. I think you'll remember this one too. We had a client where I told them not to waive the appraisal, but they really wanted the house. They waived it up to a certain amount.
Yeah.
You remember that?
I think it was $50,000.
50 grand.
Yeah.
The house under appraised for I think 60 grand.
Yeah.
So they got the house for 10 grand less. But the only way they were able to do that, and I had to talk to the lender, was they were putting 10% down. The lender said, don't worry about it. We can cover them up to 50 grand. We'll just do a 95.5 instead of a 90.10. And they ended up still buying the house.
But you can't sell you can't sell them down the river. I mean, you have to know what I mean, I have clients who, they don't care. They have the money. If the house underappraises, they got the money in the bank. You know,
Well, that's what happened with Essex County, Bergen County, with all the New Yorkers coming in.
exactly, because all of us and the New Yorkers thought, oh my God, look at this, and that's what really jacked up the price. They're used to buying a one bedroom for the price they're buying a whole house for. They couldn't believe it. I had clients buying in Morristown who was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm getting a whole house for what a one bedroom costs for in New York. You know,
to buy in New York, it's like $1 million,
it's
per bedroom.
For a studio.
For a studio, for a studio. But you know, they jacked up the price because they were willing to outbid everybody.
Same thing happened with the Shore.
Yeah.
Why go to the Hamptons for 4 hours? I get the Jersey Shore.
Sure, yeah.
But there's a lot of who don't care. The realtors who don't care. They don't. All they want is their commission check. And once the contract is submitted, and we're out of attorney review, you won't even hear from them. The buyers don't hear from them. Nobody hears from them.
Happens all the time.
Yeah.
Where did Kevin get this bottle from? Pompeii? Where?
Oh no, this is a nice bottle. Look at this. I actually broke it on the way here.
Did you?
Yeah, but
With the Ferrari or the BMW?
with the Beamer that I couldn't get gas with the other day.
That's
but,
did you hear about that?
Yeah.
That's insane.
I said to him, it's a BMW. I mean, he's in the shop more than.
Yeah.
It's a BMW. You bought it
Crazy.
brand new. By now you should be saying, hey, guys, come on, man. It's a BMW. I bought it brand new. Why are all these things wrong? I'm always in the shop. He's always with a loaner car. It's like, what are you driving? Another loaner car? Are you kidding me or what? I mean,
I love my BMW, by the way.
It is nice. Anytime
they're
I drive
nice.
with him, it's me and him in the car.
He sits in the back. He sits in the back because he wants a limo ride.
And for viewers that are listening, he drives the brand new 7 Series. So it's
it's a beautiful car,
body.
but it's always in the shop. I mean, that's the whole
No,
point.
only a couple times here and there. Not all the time.
Poor Vito's got to take the Corvette.
That, or the Ferrari. But you know what I've been driving a lot lately? Ralphie's Caddy. I love that Caddy.
Do you?
I beat it up like there's no
You
tomorrow.
need a Fiat. You and Martone both could drive together in a Palzone.
Yeah, in a Fiat.
Yeah.
But Alex and Chris, what I like about Alex and Carolyn is when
It's a family shop.
It's a fan. It's
family
just
shop.
them.
We're
There's
available at nighttime, because a lot of people can't.
There's no paralegal.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll get Carolyn or Alex sometimes 8, 9 o'clock at night, call me with the client on the phone, on a 3-way phone call, going over the contract. They go over the contract with a fine-tooth comb, where, I'll see an attorney review letter come if I got the buyer or if I got the seller or whatever, and I'll call Alex. I go, wow, that all looks good to me. And then he goes, did you read paragraph 1, 3, 7? They stuck this in, that in, that in. I go, what are you talking about? No, it's good. Get out of here. And he'll explain, and because he actually reads the contract. Carolyn reads the contract line by line.
And the review letters, especially the review letters.
You don't have, what I also like about you, Alex and Carolyn, is you don't have that boilerplate letter where you just send out.
You know it, because the contracts are just signed. 10 minutes later, you get a review letter.
Review letter. How
so
that
you just sent out, because one of the realtors will send the contract to everybody, the buyers, the sellers, the realtors, fully executed. And then all of a sudden, not 15 minutes later, the other attorney's review letter comes out. And you're like, 15 minutes. So he had time to go over the contract with his client. We prepare the letter. After we prepare the letter, we send it to the client first. Then we go over it. Do you have any questions with this? And then we ask for an authorization to send it out to the other attorney. You can't do all that in 15 minutes, which means that attorney and we have clients who say that my old attorney used to just do everything, and I had no idea. We had a client who literally, the attorney got out of attorney review. The clients didn't even know about it, and they didn't want to get out of attorney review. And so now it got to a big heated argument. They fired the attorney. They came to us saying, we don't want the house, and we didn't give him authorization to get out of attorney review. We went over the contract. Yeah. He just got it. He said he's going to call. He didn't do anything. He didn't call us back. He didn't go over his letter with us. Nothing. He just sent it. The other attorney signed it, and we were out of attorney review. And we don't want the house. And so we got involved, and we got the other attorney to understand that this is what happened, and they let us out of the contract. Now, they didn't have to let us out of the contract, and that other attorney would have been in deep water, but he let us out of the contract, and then they bought another house. They used us, and the guy couldn't believe it. He's like, holy mackerel, you guys go over everything. Yeah, We don't send anything out unless you say to send it out.
Alex El Grande right there.
There you go. I'll tell you, I get, clients all the time calling and say, you know what, we just spoke to Alex, we just spoke to Carolyn, and, we agree with everything that they want, and we're getting out of attorney review. Oh, okay, great, And sometimes they'll ask me for my opinion, and I'll say, yeah, I think you can do this, but what does Alex or Carolyn, they know more than I do when it comes to the law. I know more about the real estate, so.
It's, again, just be upfront.
Be upfront.
Let people know.
Where do you think AI is going to take your industry?
Oh, I have no idea, man. I don't think it's going to
No.
affect it much. I really don't.
I think the one thing that will affect not just real estate, but just contracts across the board, contracts will be on the blockchain, I think.
Yeah.
I think we're definitely going to see that.
Yeah.
Because you can't screw with the contract.
Yeah.
You can't screw with blockchain.
No.
That's going to be cool.
Yeah.
I was reading an article yesterday, and I don't do much reading, but I do speed reading.
Evelyn Wood.
Evelyn Wood, speed reading. But they were saying about, with AI and, with everything out there right now, like us old timers, you're still young, but us, you got to stay on top of everything and go with the times. The rest, we're going to be obsolete.
100%.
And,
That's why we're doing a podcast.
that's it. And people are just going to be, way ahead of us because they're using, AI.
You don't adapt or you die.
That's it.
Yeah, I got to tell you, for at least the last 25 years, they've been saying,
the same, yeah.
real estate's going to be all digital. Real estate's going to digital, and it just hasn't happened.
Hasn't happened yet.
It just hasn't happened.
Yeah.
For literally the last 25 years, they've been saying that.
Been the same.
It's been the same exact thing. It's like,
Yeah. And again,
I guess the biggest thing is email.
yeah, that changed everything. I mean, the fax machines now are like almost obsolete.
Yeah.
We still get faxes from old time attorneys who still, but and that's why we keep them. But most of them, even the towns, they used to insist they had a fax you to find water readings or what. Now even they're going with emails. It's like it's totally changed. Yeah.
Now, the other thing Alex and Carolyn do too is every time you have a seller, right, and you got multiple offers, he recommends everybody. They recommend everybody. Who's the home inspector?
Who's the attorney?
Who's the attorney?
I want to know.
Let them put it on the contract or in an email, so at least you know, because we'll get the inspector that we know is going to kill the deal, number one, or we'll get an attorney that's not a real estate attorney. He's a litigator.
Yeah.
And Alex will be like, you know what? Those deals look similar. I'd go with this one, and that's why.
And also,
because
there's some attorneys that give people a hard time all the time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you have two deals and they're almost similar, and one is this attorney who's really a pain in the neck, who has fun abusing people, and making the transaction more difficult than it should be, and another attorney who's knows his stuff, who's been around forever. Why would you pick the other guy? It's just like if they're similar and the deals are similar, then you go with the easier. So you're killing yourself by being a jerk. It's a small community.
Yeah.
So everybody knows who the jerks are, who the attorneys that get joy out of prolonging the process and being difficult. It's not litigation. It's a transaction.
Action. And the same thing with the realtors. Like sometimes I'll get the contracts from multiple offers, and you get one realtor and the other, and you're looking at it and you're like, I remember this realtor.
I remember
what they did, back
never
with the
answered
other
your phone for
deal.
3 weeks.
Yeah, for 3-4 weeks, or you try calling them, I can only text, and and it's like, wait a minute, why would I go with your deal? I just had a deal where we had an offer on a property, right, and didn't hear from the guy for like 2-3 days. Then finally heard, we got the deal done, and we had an issue. I text him back, and he answers me, with this derogatory remark or whatever, and he keeps going back and forth, trying to go under on the price. And I pick up the phone, I call him, and won't answer the phone. Then he finally texts us back. He goes, I can't talk, I can only text. Right? Okay. So I text him, crickets for a day. We get another offer on the property. We take the other offer. Now he's calling me. What are we doing? You taking the other offer? Why? Boo. And then he tries calling. I go back. I can't talk. I can only text.
I remember you told me that. Yeah.
Right or wrong. But that's the way to do it. You know what? Treat treat me right, I'll
Yeah.
treat you right.
Yeah,
Now,
100%.
you treat me
100%.
where you don't want to talk on the phone, but come on, give me a break.
Yeah.
I hate people like that.
Sometimes you get a buyer or you get a seller. Mainly it's buyers who they have buyer's remorse. Like literally, we're a day into this thing, and they change their mind.
Yeah.
Now, if that happened to me and I represent the seller, and an attorney calls me up and says, "Look, it's a day," and I'll call my client. I said, "Look, it's only been a day. You're going to sell the house. Let's just let them out. It's not worth the aggravation.
Yeah.
We let them out. But there's some attorneys that'll hold you up for ransom. Oh, you're rolling
Oh,
out?
yeah.
Guess what? You're going to pay $5,000 to get
They
out.
can pay for it. Yeah.
Now, it's early in the transaction. We can get out a number of other ways. Okay, we can make it really difficult during the home inspection. Why? Why go through all this rigmarole? Yeah. But those of us who do it a lot, nobody's been hurt yet. Now, if this was 2 months into the transaction, then it's a different story. Hey, you're changing your mind now? You're
Different
kidding me, right?
ballgame, yeah.
But if it's a couple days into the transaction, nobody's really been hurt. I mean,
But it's funny he says that because you remember we had a deal one time, right? It was a cash deal.
Yeah.
I think they were borrowing hard money or whatever they were doing, but it was a cash deal. We were closing, and we were at the almost at the closing table, and the buyer decides to back out.
yeah.
Now it's a cash deal, no contingencies, no nothing. And Alex goes, "What do you want to do?" You remember that deal? I said, "Well, get the sellers something. We had the house off the market for so long, and I think you ended up getting the sellers like at least $5,000
It was
or
$5
something."
grand, yeah, something like that. Yeah. But it was an inconvenience. I mean,
A
I figured,
month. It's
what do we
not
pay
like
for
a
the
day.
taxes, this, that, the carrying costs? The house has been off the market now, But it's again, it wasn't right away. It was you waited all this time, then you change your mind.
And you change your mind. That's a different
So
story.
I mean,
So as we conclude, where do you see, what's your prediction on this real estate market in our area?
I think it's still going to stay hot.
Yeah.
Hopefully, there's going to be more inventory.
How many transactions is your office doing monthly, would you say?
It varies, but it's a
So
lot.
it's
It's
staying
still
steady.
it's been steady. We haven't seen any slowdown at all. We haven't seen.
Who
any
sees it
slowdown.
first? The architects, right? The architects will see, then the realtors, and
But I'll call Alex sometimes and I'll say, "Hey, you're busy?" He goes, "Why?" He goes, "Yeah, I just got 4 contracts in today." I go, "Shit, my phone hasn't rung all day." I go, "What's going on? How'd you get 4 contracts?"
Yeah, it's crazy. It really is. The problem is the inventory is not there. But if you have realtors that have inventory, you're gonna get a lot of deals in. It's as simple as that. But it's tough. It's not a buyer's market. It's definitely still a seller's market by far.
Need more
And now that
inventory.
interest rates are going to go down, it's going to be even more.
there's got to be a builder's incentive. There's got to be a way. To
And
take
then
these
hopefully,
condemned
what
properties.
they're saying, Kamala's saying Harris is saying is going to be true. If they get rid of the red tape and they make it easier for some of these buildings to go up and these,
Yeah.
that's
Let's not get
what has to
political,
happen.
but she had an idea to put up 3,000 charging stations, and they put up 6 of them. So she wants to build 3 million new homes. She'll build 2 of them.
It's unfortunate. It's the town.
We're not going to get political here.
We got to get the towns to realize that they got to let this building.
Yeah, no, there has to be incentives.
I mean, years ago, it was so easy to build a house. You had a lot. You submitted your plans, that was it.
Yeah.
There was no crap as long as you followed the
Fairfield's
code.
easy. Some towns are easy.
No,
Some
they're
towns
all-
are
they're all hitting
every
hard.
town's getting a
Difficult,
little
yeah.
difficult lately, and I don't know if it's because you don't need a permit for a roof anymore, or siding, or windows, or a kitchen, or whatever. But every town's getting a little bit more difficult now. The other thing I don't get is either. Sometimes, you'll do, say you do not an addition, but you do a remodel, you change something, and you get a permit and you get it done, and then all of a sudden you go to do a closing and they find out that permit was never closed. What I don't get is why doesn't the town contact you
Yeah.
that the permit was never closed out?
'Cause they gotta
Why
make
do
it
you have?
difficult.
But why
that's
do you
too
have
easy.
to wait until you're trying to sell that?
Vito,
house?
Well, the
that's too
town's
easy.
position. The town's position is that you were supposed to call for final inspection, and if you did call for the final inspection, then they would close out the permit on the final inspection. So you never did the final inspection.
Right, but now as a town, okay, wouldn't you have those files
Open
sitting
permits,
there
yeah.
with open permits and call the people
Yeah.
and say, "Hey, you never closed out this permit. You need to close out this permit."
Well, that would be proactive. I don't think a lot of municipalities.
I think the easiest thing is if all these towns were told that they can't do all these regulations and make things so difficult. Like the years ago in the 50s and 60s, my God, I mean, Long Island is there because, people were literally had to buy 20 acres and build 100 houses on those 20 acres.
They built Dubai in 10 years, everything that they have. And
Yeah.
to build a place in Manhattan takes 10 years, one place.
It's gotten to the point. I mean, really, all those houses in Long Island that, those houses would all go up in one day, each house, because they literally were putting up 500-600 houses in one development.
Sure.
And the crews would go from one. And literally, my father used to talk about it, how he was a builder and built houses, how those houses, literally, the cabinets, everything from beginning to end, 1 week.
Yeah.
Every house was 1 week. I mean, they were small houses, but still.
Yeah, in a week.
Today, you could never do
Speed,
that. I
you
don't care.
can't.
You
You
can't.
can't.
And it's
You can't.
that's what's killing the market.
I
That's
spoke to one expediter in Hudson County. He said some projects over a month.
yeah. It's
get a
that's
CO.
the problem.
But the other thing that gets me too is you go pull a permit with a town, we have 20 days to
Yeah.
give you that permit.
Yeah.
20 days.
And
And
usually
then they can reset it again, too.
yeah.
And that's because if they ask for one other thing, then
Every
Then it
Recess
goes
it
another
another
20
20
days.
days.
Then it goes another.
And that shouldn't be.
That
That
shouldn't
shouldn't
be.
be.
For one
No.
permit, you can wait 3 months.
yeah.
Things have to change in this state. Because other states, you look at some down
Oh,
south,
yeah,
the
no,
Sun Belt, they build like there's no
Exactly.
tomorrow.
No,
Yeah.
I agree 100%.
It's crazy.
This is a good one.
So Alex, what do you, before we finish up here, what do you say to prospective buyers or sellers about using an attorney, why to use Il Grande and Il Grande? I know the answer to that, but I want to hear it from you.
I definitely think you should use an attorney, an experienced real estate attorney. Ask for referrals. Talk to the attorney. If the attorney won't get on the phone with you and all you can talk to is the secretary, then right there you've got a problem. I have deals where I've never talked to the attorney during the whole process. I'm always talking to a secretary. Even if I ask to talk to the attorney, they won't get on the phone. And when they do, they'll say, I don't know about the file. I have no idea what's going on in the file. So talk to an attorney, ask them, are you going to be handling this? Is your secretary going to be handling it? Am I going to be able to call you and talk to you about this, or am I going to be dealing with somebody else? And that's the number one thing. If you're paying, and it's all 90% of it's the same fee, so get to an attorney. If that's what you're paying for, an attorney, get to talk to an attorney, not a secretary or a paralegal.
Yeah.
There's some good secretaries, good paralegals out there, but that's not who you want to talk to.
Right.
If you're hiring an attorney, you want to talk to the attorney, and that's my big thing. We get calls all the time. Oh, we're calling 3 or 4 people. And if I get to talk to them or Carolyn gets to talk to them, usually we know we're going to get them. Because they'll say, wow, you spent so much time, I couldn't even get the other attorney on the phone. I was like, okay, thank you. That's what you're going to get during the transaction. When you call, even if we have to call you later, 8 o'clock at night, or you have to call us, we'll say, what time is good for you? Oh, I don't get home till about 8 or 9 o'clock. Okay, we'll go over the contract 8 or 9 o'clock. And we do. We'll set up a conference call.
Yeah.
The husband, the wife will be on if there's 2 of them, and we'll go over everything. This is what we're going to ask for, and we'll say, what do you know about the property? In the meantime, I've already looked at the house. I have one right now, and I said, look at the pictures. There's rooms in the attic, okay? And I'm looking at the ceiling in the attic, and I said to the client, did you notice that you can see the paint's peeling and it's looked like it's puffed up, the sheetrock? So that means the roof's got to be leaking. Because otherwise it wouldn't get like that. So we already knew, and wow, we didn't notice that. And that's by looking at pictures, because I went online, I looked at the house, I looked at the pictures of the
Paralegal's
house.
not going to do that.
Yeah, just to see what the house looks like. I want to know what my clients are buying, so I always look to see what the house looks like. I look to see, are there any things that look like encroachments? I'll say, well, is that your fence in the backyard, or is that the other people's fence? Oh, we didn't know. Okay,
Attention to detail.
yeah, attention, but come on, most people aren't going to look at that.
No.
They're just not going to look at that.
And that's what I like about them, where they'll look at all that. They'll talk to the people directly. They'll, we work good together. I mean, like I said before, they'll call me up, or I'll call them, get them at night or whatever.
Yeah.
I'll never forget, before we go, Carolyn, one time we had a deal together, and she calls me, I think it was like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And I pick up the phone, and we're talking, and it was on a 3-way with another client. So we're talking on the phone. She goes, "Did I catch you at a bad time?" I go, "No.
He's
I'm
probably in
good."
his pajamas in
No,
bed.
I was
I'm already
actually
2 bottles in.
I was actually in the emergency room in the hospital with an IV on me. And Karen's like, "What?" She goes, why would you pick up the phone? I go, because you
I'm
called.
bored.
No, I go, you called. There had to be something
Yeah,
important.
important at that
I'll
time of
never
night.
forget. I had an IV on me because they thought I had a tick bite. You remember with that?
Yeah.
And
I
she's
thought it was
like,
a squirrel bite.
no, it was a tick bite. But it was, and I never got bit. But she was dying. She goes, why would you pick up the phone? I go, it was you. It had to be important for you to call me,
At
you know,
night,
9:30, 10 o'clock at night. But
Yeah.
that's what I love about you guys, and that's why I always, you know, say, hey, you need a real estate attorney. It's always El Grande and El Grande. And on that note, my wine is done.
Salute.
Cheers, I'm all
Cheers.
out.
I'm all out. One day, and that day will come when you need to buy or sell a house. And when that day does come, you need to call Vito Cantuzzi, the godfather of Northern New Jersey real estate.